Captain Ziegther stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Talon, watching the sensor display with the practiced eye of a predator who had hunted these trade routes for 15 cycles. The human freighter drifted ahead, exactly where his intelligence network said it would be. The vessel was pathetic, really. Barely armed and moving with the sluggish pace typical of the species that had stumbled into galactic society only half a century ago. Distance closing to optimal boarding range, his tactical officer Vresh announced, mandibles clicking with anticipation. All 12 ships in formation, Captain. The prey is ours. Ziegther allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The Krothek's marauders had built their reputation on efficiency and terror. 247 successful raids without a single loss there. Exoskeletons bore the scars of 100 fights, and their ships carried technology scavenged from a dozen different species. The humans were simply the latest victims in a long and profitable career. The freighter ahead transmitted its distress call right on schedule. The electronic wail cut through the void, a desperate plea for help that would never arrive. Ziegther's jamming systems were already active, creating a bubble of silence that stretched for light hours in every direction. No one would hear the humans scream. No one would come to save them. This was the Void's Edge Nebula, far from any patrol routes or safe harbors. Standard response. Ziegther ordered, disable their engines, but keep the hull intact. I want that cargo unspoiled. His weapons officer acknowledged and fired. The electromagnetic pulse missiles streaked across the dock, impacting the freighter's drive section with precision. The human vessel shuddered, lights flickering, and went dead in space. Not destroyed, just helpless, exactly as Planet Ziegther watched as his boarding craft launched. 12 sleek assault shuttles carrying his best fighters. The humans would surrender or die. Most chose surrender. Humans were soft creatures, tall and weak without proper armor or natural weapons. They talked endlessly about peace and cooperation, foolish concepts. In a galaxy where strength determined survival, boarding craft latched onto the freighter's airlocks. His warriors cut through the doors with plasma torches. The feeds from their helmet cameras showed the interior of the ship. Clean corridors, soft lighting, everything designed for comfort rather than defense. It was almost insulting how easy this would be. Then his assault leader, Karanex, transmitted from inside the ship. Captain, we have reached the main cargo bay. Something is wrong here. Ziegther felt the first cold touch of unease along his spine ridges. Explain. The bay is nearly empty, Captain. Perhaps 3 containers total, the manifest claimed. They were carrying processed metals and advanced electronics. This should be a rich prize, but there is almost nothing here. Before Ziegther could respond, another transmission came through. We have located the crew, Captain. 40 humans in the common area. They are not hiding. They are not fighting. They are just sitting there watching us. This was not standard behavior. Crews either cowered in sealed compartments or attempted futile resistance. They did not simply sit and wait. Ziegther pulled up the visual feed from Karanek's helmet. The humans sat in rows of chairs arranged around their common area. They wore simple civilian clothing, no armor, no weapons. Their faces showed no fear, no anger, no desperation. One human in particular caught Ziegther's attention. An older female with gray hair, pulled back in a tight knot. She sat in the center of the group, hands folded calmly in her lap. Take them into custody. Ziegther ordered. We will ransom them if the cargo proves worthless. Search the ship thoroughly. There must be hidden compartments. Karanex approached the seated humans, his rifle trained on the group. You will stand and surrender yourselves as prisoners of the Krothek's marauders. Resistance will result in immediate. The gray-haired woman stood smoothly, cutting off his speech. She smiled. A strange expression that did not reach her eyes. Humans smiled when happy, Ziegler knew. But this was different. This smile held something else. "I am Captain Elena Martinez of the merchant vessel Bright Horizon," she said, her voice carrying clearly over the feed. "You have made a serious mistake today." Karenex laughed. The sound harsh through his translator. "We are armed and armored. You are 40 civilians trapped on a dead ship. Where is the mistake?" Martinez's smile widened slightly. The mistake was thinking we were alone. She raised her voice slightly, speaking to the empty air around her. "They're already here." Ziegler felt his blood run cold. Those 3 words carried absolute certainty. Who was here? The cargo bay was empty. The sensors showed nothing. His jamming field was active. Nothing could have. The alarms screamed across every ship in his fleet simultaneously. "Captain!" His sensor officer shrieked. "Contacts decloaking." Multiple contacts bearing 035 Mark 18. Emerging from the nebula, Captain, there are dozens of them. Ziegler spun to face the main display. The empty space around them was empty. No longer ships materialized from nothing. Their stealth fields dropping away to reveal sleek predatory forms. These were not the clumsy human vessels he had encountered before. These were warships. Purpose-built hunters with lines that spoke of speed and violence. All ships evasive action. Ziegler roared. "Return to fleet formation, launch all fighters. Prepare for..." The lead human warship fired. Its weapons battery lit up the void with coherent energy beams that sliced through the crimson. Talon shields like they were not even there. Ziegler's ship rocked violently, throwing him against his command chair. The structural integrity alarms added their voices to the chaos. Shields down to 30% from a single volley. His defensive officer reported, voice edged with panic. "Captain, their weapons output exceeds Council regulations by a factor of 4. How is this possible?" Zek. Thor did not have an answer. He watched in growing horror as the human ships moved. His vessels were scattering as trained, using evasive patterns that had saved them countless times before. But the human ships were faster. They cut off escape vectors with precision that spoke of perfect coordination. Every move his fleet made, the humans had already anticipated. All ships jumped to hyperspace. He commanded, "Emergency dispersal pattern Omega. Get us out of here. Hyperspace generators are jammed, Captain. We cannot make the jump." The battle became a massacre in the space of heartbeats. 3 of his ships exploded outright, overwhelmed by concentrated fire. The rest took crippling damage, their engines destroyed, their weapons disabled. The humans were not trying to kill them all. Ziegler realized they were capturing them, taking prisoners, studying them like specimens. His own ship shuddered as another volley struck home. The lights failed, replaced by emergency red illumination. Life support alarms began their deadly song. The artificial gravity flickered, sending loose objects floating through the bridge, through the chaos. Ziegler heard something that made his remaining hope die. He intercepted a human communication channel, their encryption laughably simple to break. A voice spoke in clear galactic common. "All units, this is Cerberus. Actual target fleet is neutralized. Boarding teams, proceed with prisoner extraction. Remember, these are high-value intelligence assets. We want them alive and talking." Another voice responded, "Roger. That Cerberus nice shooting for a bunch of corporate security contractors. Corporate security contractors. Not even military personnel. Private soldiers hired by the trading companies." His crew had been raiding for years. The Crimson Talon's hull breached. In 3 places, the atmosphere screamed. Out into space, Ziegler grabbed his helmet, sealing it as his crew died around him. The bridge became a tomb of floating bodies and sparking consoles. He had time for one final thought before the darkness took him. They had underestimated The humans catastrophically, and now they would all pay the price for that arrogance. Zichther regained consciousness to the sound of his own labored breathing inside his helmet. The emergency lights cast everything in shades of red and black. The Crimson Talon was dying around him, its once mighty systems reduced to failing backups and desperate alarms. He tried to move and immediately regretted it. Pain lanced through his thorax, where a support beam had collapsed. Across his midsection, his secondary arm still functioned, allowing him to drag himself toward his command console. Most of the screens were dark, but one flickered with life. He pulled himself up, mandibles clicking in agony, and activated the fleet-wide tactical display. What he saw confirmed his worst fears. Of his 12 ships, only 5 remained even partially operational. The rest were debris fields or tumbling hulks venting atmosphere. His own vessel was crippled beyond any hope of repair. 3 of the surviving ships were attempting to flee, their damaged engines pushing them away from the battle zone at a fraction of their normal speed. The human warships pursued with casual ease. They were not rushing, not expending unnecessary energy. They moved like hunters who knew their prey had nowhere to run. Zichther watched as one of his fleeing vessels, the Shadow Strike, tried to make a desperate course change. The human ships adjusted instantly, herding it back into the killing zone. "This is Shadow Strike Actual." The captain's voice crackled over the emergency channel. "Engines critical hull breaches on all decks. Requesting immediate." The transmission cut off as human weapons fire struck home. The ship did not explode, it simply went dark. Disabled with surgical precision, Zeker accessed the sensor logs, trying to understand what had happened. The data told a story that made his blood run cold. The human ships had been hiding in the nebula for hours, possibly days. Their stealth technology was far beyond anything the Galactic Council approved for civilian or even military use. They had watched the Krothex fleet approach, tracked every ship, analyzed every formation. The attack had not been spontaneous. It had been choreographed. Every human ship had known exactly which target to engage, exactly where to shoot, exactly how much force to apply. This was not a battle. This was an execution following a carefully written script. New transmission cut through the static. This one was directed at him specifically. A human voice spoke in flawless Krothex, not through a translator, but in his own language with proper inflection and grammar. "Captain Zichther of the Crimson Talon. This is Commander Sarah Chun of the HMCS Retribution. You and your crew are hereby ordered to surrender. Stand down all. Weapon systems and prepare to be boarded. Compliance will result in medical treatment and prisoner status. Resistance will be met with immediate termination." Zichther's tactical display showed the Retribution moving into position alongside his crippled flagship. The human warship dwarfed his vessel, easily 3 times the mass and bristling with weapon batteries that could turn the Crimson Talon into vapor. The name itself was a message. Retribution, not defense. Not patrol. Not peacekeeping. Retribution, revenge, payback. He tried to access his weapon systems. Some desperate part of his mind still clinging to warrior pride. Every console returned the same message. Offline, destroyed. Non-functional. The Crimson Talon had been reduced to a gutted shell in less than 10 minutes of combat. All remaining Krothex vessels. "This is Cerberus Actual," another human voice announced across the fleet channel. "You have 30 seconds to comply with surrender protocols. Beginning countdown now. 30, 29, 28. Zichther watched as his remaining captains made their choices. 2 ships immediately signaled surrender, killing their engines and opening their airlocks. The 3rd attempted to activate its self-destruct sequence. Human weapons fire disabled the ship's power core before the sequence could complete. Nothing exploded. The ship simply died, leaving its crew trapped inside a metal coffin. Time's up. The human commander said. "Boarding teams. You are cleared to engage. All prisoners are to be secured and transported to holding cells. Medical teams stand by. We want intelligence from these targets. They're no good to us dead." Through his failing sensors, Ziegler watched as human boarding craft launched. They moved with the same terrifying efficiency as the warships, docking with precision that spoke of endless practice. How many times had they done this? How many other pirate crews had fallen to these hunters? The Crimson Talon shuddered as magnetic clamps secured the human boarding craft to his hull. He heard the distinctive sound of plasma cutters working through his airlock doors. His remaining crew, those who had survived the initial assault, would be fighting back, brave and loyal to the end, but also doomed. He accessed the internal camera feeds, watching as human soldiers poured into his ship. They wore powered armor that made them look like mechanical demons, their weapons tracked with inhuman precision. Guided by sensor suites that saw through walls and around corners, they moved in perfect coordination. Each soldier covering angles and clearing rooms with practiced efficiency. His warriors fought. They fired their weapons, threw grenades, attempted ambushes. Nothing worked. The humans seemed to know where every Krothek's fighter was hiding. They used non-lethal weapons when possible. Electromagnetic pulse grenades and shock rounds that disabled without killing when his crew tried to fight in close quarters. The human's armor simply absorbed the blows and retaliated with overwhelming force within 5 minutes. The fighting was over. His entire crew, 43 warriors who had survived countless raids, were subdued and restrained. Ziegler watched them being processed like cargo, scanned, cataloged, and tagged for transport. One human broke off from the main group and headed toward the bridge. The soldier's armor was marked with different insignia, medical symbols. Ziegler realized a combat medic was coming to check on him, not to finish him, but to save him. They wanted him alive. The bridge door, already damaged in the fighting, offered no resistance. The human medic entered, weapon lowered but ready. The soldier's helmet retracted, revealing a young woman with dark skin and tired eyes. She looked at Ziegler pinned under the debris, her face showing something he did not expect. Pity. "Easy there," she said softly. Kneeling beside him, "I'm going to scan you for injuries. Don't try to move. You've got internal bleeding and at least 3 fractured chitin plates." She worked quickly, her hands steady despite the carnage around her. A scanner passed over his body, feeding data to her armor's medical systems. She pulled out an injector, loaded it with something from her kit. "This is going to hurt," she warned. "Your biology is different from ours, but we've studied enough Krothek's physiology to know what works. I'm giving you a coagulant to slow the bleeding and a pain inhibitor. It won't fix you, but it'll keep you stable for transport." The injection burned like fire through his system, but the pain in his thorax began to fade. She was saving his life. Why? He was an enemy, a pirate, a killer. Why would they show mercy? "Why?" he managed to rasp out, his translator struggling with the effort. The medic looked at him with those tired eyes. "Because you're more valuable. Alive intelligence wants to talk to you. And because killing helpless prisoners isn't what we do." She paused, checking her scanner again. "Besides, you're going to stand trial for your crimes. That means we need you breathing." Trial. The word carried weight he had not considered. These humans were not just hunting pirates. They were bringing them to justice, building cases, gathering evidence, following laws. This was not revenge despite the ship's name. This was civilization asserting itself. The medic activated her comm. Bridge secure. 1 prisoner critical but stable, ready for extraction. More humans arrived with a medical stretcher. They carefully lifted the debris off Ziegler's body and secured him to the stretcher as they carried him through his own ship. He saw the full extent of the human victory, his crew bound and helpless, his vessel gutted and dark. His reputation and career reduced to nothing in the span of minutes. They loaded him onto the human boarding craft. The interior was clean, efficient, designed for rapid deployment and extraction. He was placed in a medical bay where machines immediately began working on his injuries. Human technology, far more advanced than anything his species possessed, keeping him alive for interrogation and trial through a viewport. He saw the Void's Edge Nebula and the scattered remains of his fleet. 12 ships had entered this trap. Only prisoners would leave. The Krothex Marauders, feared across 7 sectors, had been destroyed by humans who were not even military personnel, corporate security contractors, private soldiers hired to protect trade routes. They had hunted his crew like vermin, studied their tactics, laid the perfect trap, and now they were collecting their prisoners like a harvest of criminal. Shikor closed his eyes, pain and shame washing over him in equal measure. His species had dismissed the humans as weak newcomers. Barely worth noticing that dismissal had cost him everything. The human medical bay hummed with activity around Zicther's broken body. Machines breathed for him, pumped synthetic blood through his failing circulatory system, monitored the slow collapse of his organs. The medic had been wrong about keeping him stable. His injuries were too severe, the internal damage too extensive. He was dying, just slowly enough to witness his own end. A human doctor entered the bay, reviewing data on a handheld device. She was older than the combat medic, with gray streaks in her black hair and the bearing of someone who had seen too much death. Her name tag read Dr. Amari. She looked at Zicther's monitors, and her expression shifted from professional concern to something softer. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "We've done everything we can. Your physiology is shutting down. The trauma was too severe." Zicther tried to speak, but his translator failed, producing only static. Dr. Amari noticed and adjusted something on a medical console. His translator reset. "Functions returning. How long?" He managed to rasp. "Hours, maybe less." She pulled up a chair and sat beside his medical platform. "Is there anything you need? Anyone you want us to contact?" The question struck him as absurd. This human doctor, whose people he had terrorized and robbed, was offering him comfort in his final moments. The contradiction made his mind rebel against understanding. "Why?" he asked. "Why show mercy to an enemy?" Dr. Amari was quiet for a moment. "Because mercy is what separates us from monsters. Even monsters like you deserve basic dignity in death." She gestured to the medical equipment. "We could have let you die in your ship's wreckage. Instead, we brought you here, tried to save you. That's who we are." Zicther, as secondary arms, twitched weakly. "My crew, my warriors. Alive, all of them secured in holding cells awaiting transport to proper detention facilities. They'll stand trial for piracy, murder, theft, spend the rest of their lives in prison probably. But they'll live." Dr. Amari leaned back in her chair. "You want to know something? This whole operation was planned down to the minute. We knew exactly where you'd be when you'd arrive, how you'd attack. We've been tracking your crew for 8 months. 8 months, the number hit Zicther like a physical blow. Impossible we would have detected surveillance. Would you?" Dr. Amari smiled sadly. "We had observers in every port you visited, agents in the information networks you used. We tracked your supply purchases, your fuel consumption, your crew rotations. We built a complete profile of your operations, and you never noticed. Because you weren't looking. You thought humans were primitive, slow, easy targets." She stood and walked to a wall display, pulling up data files. "Want to see what we know about you?" Captain Zicther, age 43 cycles, born on Krothex Prime, 3rd Colony District, entered military service at age 12. Dishonorably discharged at age 19 for unauthorized raids against civilian targets. Formed the Crimson Talon crew 24 cycles ago. 247 successful raids, 16 confirmed kills. Estimated theft totaling 900 million credits. Ziegler watched in horror as his entire life scrolled across the screen. How? Intelligence gathering, it's what we do. Every raid you conducted. We analyzed every piece of stolen cargo you sold. We traced. You thought you were invisible, but you left trails everywhere, digital footprints, witness testimony, physical evidence. We followed every thread until we had the complete picture. Dr. Amari returned to her chair. Then we set the trap, the freighter, the cargo manifests, the route schedule, all fake, designed specifically to draw you in. We knew you couldn't resist the target, and once you committed, our fleet moved in. Your fleet, Ziegler whispered, not military corporate security. That's right, we're hired by the merchant guilds, the trading companies, the civilian sectors that your kind prey upon. She smiled without humor. The military has bigger concerns than pirates, so the corporations hired us. We're private contractors. Former soldiers mostly, working for profit, not patriotism, but we're very good at what we do. Ziegler felt his strength fading, but desperation drove him to access his armor's internal computer. The device was damaged, but still functional. He pulled up the Krothex database on human capabilities. The intelligence his species had gathered over decades. The data was pathetic, a handful of reports from 50 years ago. When humanity first stumbled into galactic society, their ships had been slow, their weapons primitive, their tactics straightforward. The Krothex military had dismissed them as negligible threats. The criminal underworld had seen them as easy prey. But there was nothing recent. No updates. No new assessments. No warnings. The database treated humans as if they had remained frozen in time while the galaxy moved forward. Your data is old, Dr. Amari observed, looking over his shoulder at the display. Decades out of date. You know why? Because nobody bothered to check. Nobody paid attention to the newcomers. We were beneath notice, so you never saw what we became. She manipulated the display, pulling up different files. These showed human vessels, weapon systems, tactical doctrines, all marked with dates from the last 10 years. The technology was staggering. Advancement curves that climbed at impossible angles. We've been in space for 53 years, Dr. Amari explained. In that time, we've revolutionized spacecraft design 4 times. Our weapons technology has gone through 7 major iterations. Our tactical computing is 3 generations ahead of council standards. And you know what? We're still considered primitive by galactic standards. Can you imagine what we'll be capable of in another 50 years? Ziegler stared at the data, understanding dawning like a cold sun. The humans had not been standing still. They had been growing, learning, advancing at rates that defied normal technological development, and the galaxy had simply not noticed because humans were new, unimportant, beneath serious consideration. Your species, he rasped. How do you advance so quickly? Dr. Amari's expression turned contemplative. Competition. We're not like other species. We didn't evolve under cooperative conditions. We come from a death world where everything tried to kill us. Weather, animals, diseases, each other. We survived by being smarter, faster, more adaptable than anything else on our planet. She pulled up images of Earth. The human homeworld. Ziegler saw oceans that could swallow continents, storms that dwarf starships, predators that made Krothex warriors look fragile. The planet itself seemed hostile to life. We had to innovate or die. Dr. Amari continued, and we got very good at it. Our entire civilization is built on competitive advancement. Every company trying to outdo its rivals. Every nation trying to surpass its neighbors. Every individual trying to better themselves. We don't just accept technology. We improve it obsessively. Ziegler thought about his own species, the Krothex. Had been using the same ship designs for centuries, the same weapons, the same tactics, the same strategies. If something worked, why change it? Tradition and proven methods were valued over innovation and risk. We evolved differently, he whispered. Understanding now. My people value stability, yours value change. Exactly. Dr. Amari nodded. And in a universe that's constantly evolving, which approach do you think survives better? The medical monitors began alarming. Ziegler felt his heart struggling, his lungs failing to process oxygen. Dr. Amari checked the readings, and her face softened. It's time, she said gently. Is there anything you want to say? Any message you want recorded? Ziegler considered. He thought about his crew, captured and awaiting trial. He thought about the other pirate bands who preyed on human shipping, who saw these newcomers as weak and vulnerable. He thought about the galaxy that had dismissed humanity as irrelevant. Record this, he managed, activating his personal log with the last of his strength. To any Krothex who find this message, to any who think to raid human space. He paused, gathering breath. We were wrong. Everything we thought we knew about humans was wrong. They are not weak. They are not slow. They are not primitive. They are predators, hunters-killers, who have refined violence into a science. The words came harder now. His system's failing. They let us raid them for months, studying us, learning our patterns. They could have stopped us at any time, but they waited. They wanted to understand us completely before they struck. That is how they think. That is what makes them dangerous. His vision was fading, but he pushed on. The humans who destroyed our fleet were not soldiers. They were corporate security, private contractors, and they annihilated us. We never had a chance. None of us do. Don Amari watched silently as he recorded his final words. Her face showed sadness but no guilt. This was war by another name. And in war there were casualties. Stay away from human space. Ziegler whispered into his log. Stay away from their ships. Their cargo is not worth your life. Nothing is. They will hunt you. They will find you, and they will end you with such efficiency that you will not even understand how you died. The monitor's flatlined. Dr. Amari stood, reaching over to close Ziegler's eyes. She whispered something in her own language, perhaps a prayer, perhaps just a farewell. Then she saved his final recording to the medical database within hours. It would be extracted by intelligence officers within days. It would be analyzed and cataloged within weeks. It would become the foundation of psychological operations against pirate networks across 3 sectors. Zack Thor's last words would haunt the criminal underworld, spreading fear and caution where once there had been contempt and opportunism. Colonel James Okonkwo entered the detention bay where the surviving Krothex pirates were being held. 27 warriors sat in reinforced cells, their exoskeletons stripped away, their weapons confiscated. They looked diminished without their armor, almost fragile. The proud raiders who had terrorized shipping lanes for years were now just prisoners awaiting transport to trial. He walked past their cells slowly, studying each face. Some glared at him with defiant hatred. Others looked away in shame. A few watched him with the calculating eyes of predators assessing potential prey. Those were the dangerous ones. The true believers who would never accept defeat. Okonkwo stopped at the last cell. The nameplate read Vresh, tactical officer of the Crimson Talon. This one had fought hard during the boarding action, taking down 2 security contractors before being subdued. The Krothex warrior sat cross-legged on the cell floor, secondary arms wrapped around his midsection in a posture that spoke of deep contemplation. Bresh, Okonkwo said quietly, I'd like to talk to you. The pirate looked up, compound eyes reflecting the harsh cell lighting. I have nothing to say to you. Human, your captain is dead. You have won. What more do you want? Understanding. Okonkwo gestured to a guard who opened the cell door. He stepped inside, unarmed and unarmored, wearing only his uniform. The guard tensed, but Okonkwo waved him back. I want you to understand what happened today, and I want to understand you. Resh's mandibles clicked in what might have been bitter laughter. You want to understand why we prey on your kind? It is simple. You are weak. Your ships move slowly. Your weapons are inferior. Your species has been in space for barely a generation. You are children playing at being adults. Is that what you believe? Okonkwo sat down on the floor across from Resh, crossing his legs in a mirror of the pirate's posture. That we're children? Your data says so, Resh gestured with his primary arms. The galactic databases show human capabilities from 50 years ago, primitive drives. Basic weapons, minimal armor when we planned our raids. We consulted the official records. Nothing indicated you had changed. And did you ever think to verify that data? To check if maybe things had evolved in 50 years? Resh was silent for a long moment. We saw no reason to your kind kept building the same ship classes. Hauling cargo in vessels that matched the old designs. Why would we question it? Okonkwo smiled sadly. Because those old designs work just fine for hauling cargo. Why spend money upgrading freighters when the threat level didn't justify it? The warships, that's a different story. We've been building those in secret. Away from prying eyes, you want to know why. Enlighten me. Because we learned a hard lesson early on. Okonkwo leaned back against the cell wall. When we first entered galactic society, we were naive. We thought everyone would welcome us. That the galaxy operated on principles of cooperation and mutual benefit. We were wrong within the first year. He pulled up a holographic display from his wrist device, showing images of early human colonies. The Verth Consortium hit our outer settlements. Looking for easy slaves, they thought we'd roll over. Accept it as the cost of being new to the game. Instead, we fought back, messily, inefficiently. But we fought. They weren't expecting resistance from primitives. Resh watched the images of burning colonies and makeshift human defenses. You survived. Barely, but we learned the galaxy isn't the peaceful federation we imagined. It's a collection of species pursuing their own interests. And newcomers are prey until they prove otherwise. So we adapted. We started building real defenses. Real weapons. But we kept it quiet. More images appeared, showing human shipyards hidden in asteroid fields and orbital construction facilities disguised as mining operations. We let the galaxy think we were still primitive, still weak, still easy targets. Meanwhile, we were building the capabilities to defend ourselves, and more importantly, we were learning. Learning what? Everything. Okonkwo's expression grew intense. We studied every species in the galaxy, their tactics, their technologies, their weaknesses. We accessed council databases, purchased intelligence from information brokers, interviewed traders and mercenaries. We built a complete picture of how galactic warfare actually works. He changed the display to show tactical analyses and combat simulations. Then we did what humans do best. We improved on it. See, every other species tends to find a method that works and stick with it. The Krotheks have been using the same raiding tactics for what? 3 centuries. Your approach to boarding actions hasn't changed in generations. Resh shifted uncomfortably. Our methods are proven. Tradition ensures consistency. Tradition ensures stagnation. Okonkwo shook his head. Humans don't work that way. We question everything. Challenge every assumption. We take what works and make it better. Then we improve it again and again. Our weapons development cycle is measured in years, not centuries. He showed Resh comparison charts of technological advancement. Look at this. The Krotheks plasma rifle design is 200 years old. The Varth energy shields are even older. But human weapons, human defenses. We're on our 7th generation of ship-mounted weapons in 50 years. Each generation more powerful, more efficient, more deadly. Why? Resh asked. Genuine confusion in his voice. Why this obsession with constant change? Okonkwo was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully because of where we come from. You've seen the data on Earth. Our homeworld is classified as a class 12 death world by council standards. Most species evolve on class 4 or 5 worlds at most. The display showed Earth in all its terrible beauty. Hurricanes that could flatten cities, earthquakes that reshaped continents, volcanoes that blotted out the sun. Our planet tried to kill us every day. Extreme weather, mega predators, diseases that evolve faster than we could cure them. We didn't survive by being the strongest or the fastest. We survived by being the most adaptable. Images of human history scroll past stone tools giving way to bronze, then iron and steel castles falling to cannons, cavalry replaced by tanks, propeller planes evolving into jets. We've been in a constant state of warfare for our entire history, not just against nature, but against each other. Thousands of years of conflict, of competition, of survival of the fittest. Resh stared at the images with growing horror. Your species has been fighting itself for millennia. Every day for 10,000 years. Okonkwo nodded. We've tried every form of combat imaginable. We've developed strategies and counter-strategies for every possible scenario. We've turned warfare into a science, an art form. Other species fight when necessary. We were born fighting. He leaned forward, his gaze intense. Do you understand what that means, you raiders? Pirates, you treat violence as a profession, a way to make profit for us. It's history. It's in our blood. We don't just know how to fight, we know how to win. Because the humans who didn't learn that lesson died 10,000 years ago. The display changed to show the recent battle. Your fleet entered our trap because we understood exactly how you think. We predicted every move because we've seen it all before in our own history. The ambush tactics you used, we invented those 3,000 years ago. The boarding strategies you employed, we perfected and then abandoned them 1,000 years ago because we found better methods. Resh's voice was barely a whisper. We were fighting with ancient weapons against modern ones. Worse than that. Okonkwo stood, looking down at the defeated pirate. You were fighting with our own ancient weapons against our modern refinements. Everything you know about combat, we taught the galaxy ages ago when our ancestors were just learning to forge bronze. We've been iterating and improving ever since. He turned to leave, then paused at the cell door. You asked why we show mercy, because despite everything, despite our violent history, we learned that civilization requires restraint. That strength without wisdom leads to extinction. We could have killed you all. Instead, you'll face trial, serve your sentences, maybe even reform. And if we had won, Resh asked quietly, if the trap had failed and we had taken your ships. Okonkwo looked back, his expression unreadable. Then we would have learned from our mistakes, adapted our tactics, and tried again. That's what humans do. We fail, we learn, we improve, and we never make the same mistake twice. He stepped out of the cell. The door sealed behind him with a pneumatic hiss as he walked away. He heard Resh's voice calling after him. Colonel, your captain, Zeekther. He left a message before he died, warning others about humanity. Will it work? Will pirates leave your space alone? Okonkwo stopped. Some will, the smart ones, but there will always be those who think they can beat the odds, who believe they're cleverer or stronger than the last group, and we'll be waiting for them too, learning, adapting, improving. You're building an empire. No. Okonkwo shook his head firmly. We're building a civilization, one that can defend itself and protect its people. The galaxy can accept us as equals, or they can test us like your crew did. Either way, humanity will endure. That's what we do best. He left the detention bay, the weight of history pressing down on his shoulders. The battle had been won, but the larger war, the struggle for humanity's place in the galaxy, was just beginning, and humans had always been very good at long wars. The wreckage of the Crimson Talon drifted in the voids, Edge Nebula for 3 weeks before a Krothek salvage crew stumbled across it. They were scavengers, bottom feeders who picked through the debris fields, left by pirates and traders alike. The destroyed warship represented a fortune in recyclable materials and salvageable technology. The salvage captain guided his small vessel alongside the gutted hull. His sensors showed no life signs, no active power systems, nothing but a dead ship waiting to be stripped. Easy profit. He muttered to his crew, "Whatever happened here? Someone else already took the valuables. We get the scraps." They boarded through a blast hole in the engineering section, magnetic boots clanking on torn metal. The interior was a horror show. Bodies floated in the zero gravity, frozen in their final moments. Karnesh had seen death before, but this was different. This was systematic, surgical. Every kill shot placed with precision. Every fallen warrior bearing wounds that spoke of overwhelming force. "Find the bridge," he ordered his crew. "Captain's logs, navigation data, anything we can sell to the information brokers." They made their way through the shattered corridors, past weapons that had failed to fire and armor that had been pierced like paper. The Crimson Talon had been a legend in the underworld. Zikthur's crew feared across 7 sectors. Now it was just another tomb. The bridge was worse. Evidence of the final stand littered the deck, blood and ichor frozen on every surface. Karnesh floated to the captain's station, finding Zikthur's body still strapped into the command chair. His armor told the story. Dragged from here, treated, then returned after death. Someone had shown respect even to a defeated enemy. Koresh accessed the ship's computer core. Most data systems were wiped, either by security protocols or by whoever had defeated the Crimson Talon, but personal logs were stored in isolated modules, designed to survive ship destruction. He found Zikthur's final recording and activated it. The dead captain's voice filled the bridge, weak and rasping but clear. "To any Krotheks who find this message, to any who think to raid human space." Karnesh listened in growing horror as Zikthur described the battle, the trap, the human warships, the systematic destruction of his entire fleet. The warning was explicit and terrifying. Humanity was not what they seemed. They were hunters, patient and deadly, who had allowed themselves to be preyed upon while they gathered intelligence. When the recording ended, Karnesh immediately copied it to his personal storage. Then he copied it again to backup systems. This information was worth more than all the scrap metal in the debris field. This was intelligence that could save lives, or make fortunes depending on who purchased it. Sold it to a Verith information broker within hours. The broker, a cunning trader named Zixero, recognized the value immediately and distributed copies throughout the criminal underworld. Within a week, every pirate band, raider group, and smuggling operation in 3 sectors had heard Zikthur's final words. The reaction was swift and dramatic. Human shipping lanes, once considered easy targets, became forbidden territory. Crews that had been planning raids on human convoys canceled their operations. Pirate captains who had ignored human space now gave it a wide berth. The message was clear. The prey had become predators, but not everyone listened. In the Kelroth sector, a pirate lord named Dexcor dismissed the warnings. "One battle," he scoffed to his assembled captains. "One fleet got careless and paid for it, but we are not the Krotheks. We are smarter, faster, better prepared." His crew consisted of 40 ships, twice the size of Zikthur's force. They equipped themselves with advanced sensors, hired mercenary scouts, and planned their raid with meticulous care. They would prove that humans could still be beaten. Operation lasted 6 hours. Human warships appeared from nowhere, their stealth capabilities even more advanced than the recording suggested. Dexcor's fleet was not just defeated but annihilated. 38 ships destroyed, 2 captured, The pirate lord himself died when his flagship's reactor was surgically disabled. Flooding the ship with radiation survivors spread the story with shaking voices. The humans had known they were coming, had watched them plan, had tracked their movements, had waited until they committed fully before springing the trap, just like with Zeekthur's crew after that. The trickle of pirates avoiding human space became a flood. The Galactic Council took notice when shipping reports showed a dramatic shift in piracy patterns. Their intelligence division, the Security and Monitoring Bureau, launched an investigation into the sudden change. What they discovered alarmed them far more than simple pirate defeats. Ambassador Rel Tar of the Council Security Committee sat in her office on the orbital station above the Council homeworld, reviewing classified reports. Her scales flickered with agitation as she read the analysis compiled by her best agents. They've been building a fleet, she said to her assistant. The humans have been constructing military vessels in secret for years. How did we miss this? The assistant, a young Varith named Kix, pulled up holographic displays. The ships were built in remote systems, disguised as commercial ventures according to our sources. They use shell corporations, private funding, even crowdsourcing from their civilian population, all outside official government channels, private military forces. Relther's voice carried disbelief, operating independently of their government. Not independently, Coordinator. The human government knows and tacitly approves, but by keeping it private, they avoid treaty restrictions on military fleet sizes. Kix highlighted relevant sections of the reports. The vessels that destroyed the Krothex Marauders were corporate security, hired by trading companies, but they're crewed by former military personnel, using weapons developed in government laboratories. Relther felt a chill run down her spine. They're circumventing the council regulations. Technically, no. Kix's expression was troubled. The treaties restrict government military forces. Civilian corporations hiring private security aren't covered. The humans found a loophole and exploited it brilliantly. The ambassador stood and walked to her window, looking out at the dozens of species ships docked at the station. What else don't we know about them? That's the question that troubles me most. Kix pulled up more data. The Security Bureau has been reviewing all human-related intelligence we've discovered. Systematic gaps in our knowledge. We have excellent data from 50 years ago when they first joined the Council, and almost nothing for the next 3 decades. The latest comprehensive assessment is 8 years old. Why the gap? Because no one thought to look. Coordinator. Kix's tone was apologetic. Humans were considered minor players, a young species still learning galactic norms. Most analysts focused on established powers like the Varith Consortium or the Krothex Empire. The humans were background noise. Relther returned to her desk, and while we ignored them, they grew. Kix activated a timeline display. Look at their technological progression. It's exponential. Where other species advance linearly over centuries, humans advance in jumps every few years. Their weapons development, their ship designs, their tactical doctrines, all evolving at rates we've never seen before. The ambassador studied the data. This rate of advancement, it's unsustainable. Surely they'll plateau like every other species. Our analysts don't think so. Kix highlighted projections. Human culture appears to be built on competitive innovation, every company trying to surpass rivals, every nation trying to maintain advantages, every individual striving for improvement. It's not government-driven. Like our development programs, it's civilization-wide. Relther searched for words. That's terrifying. Yes, Coordinator, and there's more. Kix pulled up military analyses. The forces that destroyed the pirate fleets, those were just corporate security. We have no reliable intelligence on actual human military capabilities. Our analysts believe the Government forces are significantly more advanced than the private sector. Relther sat down heavily. You're saying this ship's the terrorized pirate? Crews across 3 sectors weren't even their best. Not even close. The corporations use hand-me-down technology. Systems declassified after the military moves on to better equipment. Kix's voice dropped to near whisper. Coordinator. We don't actually know what humanity's true military can do. No one does. They haven't deployed it in any conflict since joining the Council. The implications settled over the office like a way Ambassador Relther had spent 40 years in Council service, navigating complex political situations and managing relationships between dozens of species. She recognized a strategic disadvantage when she saw one. We need updated intelligence, she said finally. Full assessment of human capabilities. Military and industrial. Start with open sources. What they're willing to share, then fill in gaps with whatever our agents can gather quietly. And Kix, make it clear to our operatives. No aggressive espionage. We don't know how humans respond to security threats, and I don't want to find out the hard way. Understood, Coordinator. I'll brief the intelligence teams immediately. As Kix left, Relther pulled up the recording of Zeekther's final message. She had listened to it a dozen times already, but it still sent ice through her veins. That dying pirate sea